Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video on making a multiplayer FPS in Unity. Today we're going to be looking at something really exciting, which is importing a cool looking arena, adding a bunch of particle effects, and playing around with the lighting to make our scene look a lot more awesome. So I've really been looking forward to this video. We're not going to be writing a single line of code, but we have plenty of stuff to do. And the arena, of course, is custom made and you can use it in any way you like. Also commercially, it's available for download now for free as part of the multiplayer FPS assets pack. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So you can see that I'm here in Unity and I just want to begin by setting up the lighting settings. So if you go to Window and select lighting, it's somewhere here. For some reason, there it is, if you haven't got it open, and I like to dock it over here by the inspector. And we just want to make sure that our build settings down here when it comes to the light maps is set to auto, just so that it will auto build everything as we change things as we go. And then we pretty much want to close down Unity here or minimize it, find the multiplayer FPS assets when you've downloaded those, and I've prepared an arena Unity package. And I've done this because the arena is huge and it has a bunch of models and textures and materials, and it's way too much to fit into, even several videos to set all of that up. So I've gone ahead and done most of it, and we'll just finish it off in this video. If you want to do all of this on your own or say edit some of the source files, I have included those here. So the arena source files, there's both a Blender version and an FBX version, and all of the textures that you might use are in here. But you can also just import the Unity package and then edit the files from there, which I definitely recommend you do. So please use this if you can. Also, the Unity package uses the Blender file, which means that in order for Unity to import and process it properly, you will need to have Blender installed. There will be a link to that in the description. It's not a large programming in any way, and it's great to have because it's, well, frankly awesome to model in. So I definitely just recommend you go over there and install Blender. So without further ado, let's double click on the Arena Unity package to open it up in Unity here. And we can, of course, deselect different stuff, but we just want to import all of it. So let's hit import here. And this will take a little while because we do have a lot of textures, some of them fairly high resolution and some fairly high detailed models, so it will take a little while, especially because we have all of the relations between the objects already set up for you. So Unity has remembered all that stuff. But as soon as this is done, you will see that you get an arena folder over here. And in here we have this is the model itself. You can double click this and it will open up in Blender. We have a materials folder with all of the different materials that we are going to need. And it's actually gone ahead and included some that we don't need. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of the weirdly named ones, which is all of these. These shouldn't even be in here. It's just the way that Unity exports Unity packages. Sometimes it's a bit annoying. So you can just select the same ones that I am selecting here if you want to get rid of them. Or you can just leave them in there. It's not going to make a huge difference. So just delete all of those. And I'm going to do the same with, okay, so the textures are actually already set up. So that was pretty much all we needed to do. And now we can just take the arena prefab here, which is the one that I've set up for you, and simply drag it into our project panel. And you should see that all of the textures are here. Nothing appears weird or anything. If it does, you might have deleted something that you weren't supposed to. So just make sure you don't delete anything I didn't. And you can see that this already looks fairly cool, but we have so much that we can edit inside of this. And you can pretty much click on anything and edit the material or whatever. All of the inspector settings are here. So that's pretty cool. But what I want to go ahead and do is take our environment here and then drag our directional light out from that and maybe call this our sun. And then you can remove or just disable the environment that we had before, just so we only have the arena to work with here. So my arena is centered. I think you should do the same thing. And basically what I want to begin with here, you can see that I've actually made a short to-do list here. We start by importing the arena. Well, we just did that. Now we need to set a few layers because the arena here actually already has some colliders set up. If we select, for example, the floor here, you can see it has a mesh collider over here. However, in order for our player to be able to stand on top of this using the system where we raycast to check if the player is collidable with this, so that he will be able to hover a certain distance above the ground, we will have to make sure to change all of the layers where we want that to happen to collidable environment. And I've actually done this with my prefab, but if your settings are different, you will have to go in and do this yourself. So make sure to tag it as whatever you have called that tag. In my case, it's collidable environment. And you will have to do that with all of the flying platforms as well. And you can see here it hasn't done that. So let's go and change the layer. I believe it just said tag. It's the layer that you want to change. You can, of course, also go in and tag stuff differently. So that will just set that up. And that's pretty much all I meant by set layers. Now we need to position our scene camera because we have our scene camera here, and currently it gets an overview of the entire map, and that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily look too good from the outside. So let's find somewhere inside of our scene that looks nice, and I'm just going to position it somewhere around here. Is a pretty nice look. I think it gives a pretty nice overview of the map, but still with a bit of perspective. And what you can do if you've positioned your scene here in a way that you would like your camera to be, is press on the scene camera and then press Ctrl-Shift F. And if you're on a Mac, that would be Command-Shift F. And it's the same as going to, I believe it's Game Object and then align with View. And you can see that the scene camera has now snapped to that view. So in the game view here will now be the same as the scene view. Of course not if we change anything in our scene, the camera is still static. Oops, let's just drag that back there. Cool, so I think that looks pretty nice, and you can of course position it otherwise. And what we also want to do to our scene camera here is just make sure this is not a solid color, but that it's also using the skybox. However, it's not currently visible. Cool. So that was that. Now we can go in here. We've positioned the camera and it's using the skybox. That's perfect. Now we want to set up another skybox because I think the default skybox is nice for a lot of things, but I don't think it kind of suits the style that I'm going for with this arena, which is kind of an evening look where the sun is setting or rising, of course. Yeah, so I want to find something that looks a bit like that. And if you do too, then go to the asset store and search for Skybox. And again, you find the asset store by going to Window and then opening up the asset store. It's somewhere in here. I cannot find anything today. So we have the asset store right there. Okay, so tunnel vision. And search for Skybox and hit free only. And you actually get a bunch of very high quality skyboxes that you can use in your game. And I really like the one called Cope here, the free skybox pack. So if we go ahead and hit import on this, that's a really nice skybox in here called Sunset, which is pretty much perfect for for the look that I'm going for. So let's go ahead and hit import on that. And it's just going to import all of the textures and the materials that it's set up. And it shouldn't take long. It's already done here. And I'm just going to call this skyboxes. There we go. And this is again, of course, free. So you can download it as well or find some other pack that suits you. And then we'll go under lighting and we'll change the default skybox to instead be sunset. Okay, so this very much changes the look of our scene, but I think this skybox is absolutely beautiful. So that's what we are going to be using. And I want to boost the ambient intensity of the light by something like 2, maybe even 2.3. I really want that to be very bright by default. I think that gives a nice look in here. And we'll also get some other lights in here as well, of course. So all of the other settings, I believe we can pretty much leave as is. We might want to drag our sun into the sun slot right there. And we can also find the skybox, find the sunset here. And I think the skybox is amazing, but it is a tiny bit too dark. So what I like to do is go in here and simply bring up the exposure to something like 1.2. And then we'll just boost the overall brightness of the skybox a tiny bit. Cool. I think it's time to mess around with the lights, but let's see what I have planned here. So now it's time to set up lighting. And when it comes to lighting, I think it's great to start with a cool directional light. We already have that in here. And I basically want to rotate this to something like 11, negative 108, and 20. And I believe that should rotate it to kind of point towards the sun in our skybox. It's actually a bit off, so we can just go ahead and rotate it a tiny bit there, just so it points in the general direction, of the sun from our skybox. I believe that gives the greatest look, and you can see kind of the sun shining in on just part of the arena here, and that gives a very cool feel to it. So we'll also edit the color here, and I've actually prepared a color that I think works nice with the scene, kind of an evening color here, but you can choose your own or just copy the hex color from down here. And I want the intensity to be somewhere like 1.3, so it is kind of bright, but still you can see that it's disappearing between the hills. And I definitely want soft shadows to be on. I think that gives a very nice look for the directional light, but you might want to not have that on some of the point lights that we'll be adding later. So that was all for the sun. What I also want to do is kind of have a central light in the middle of the arena, maybe up towards the ceiling here. And you can see that nice glowing effect that we have on this. That kind of just gives the arena some indoor mood light. So let's right click, go light and point light, and let's set this up. So I want this to be at a Y value of something like 2.65 maybe, something like that, just in the middle of the arena. I want the range to be something like 25. The color, and I've prepared a color again here, just so we don't spend too long trying to get that right. You can see it just gives this very nice warm feel, almost as if it was coming from the sign up here. That's kind of the point. You can maybe just raise it a tiny bit. And I want the intensity, I think, to pretty much just be 1. However, to make this effect really nice, what I will do is I will go ahead and enable hard cast shadows. And this will, of course, take some performance. If you're making this game for a mobile application, you probably don't want to have hard shadows on your point lights, or at least you want to be careful with how many you have. But on a stationary computer or a modern laptop, this should not be a problem whatsoever. So I just think it really gives a nice feel. You can see all of the bars here shining onto the chairs. That looks kind of cool. You can see what that does to the environment. Good. So, yep. That all looks nice, and we can go in here and just make sure lighting data set was built with an we can get rid of that by removing the auto here and going clear bake data, and then choosing auto again, and it's going to auto bake the light map now. So that's perfect. And where do we want to go from now? Well, I definitely want to have some more light in here, but I want to have some flames under the obstacles here, some cool flame particles, and we'll have them light up the arena as well. And we'll have them be animated so that they vary in intensity. That's a really nice feel. So we'll call this the arena center light. And we could make this part of the prefab, but I'll just keep it out of it for now. Just so we preserve the original prefab. I don't know, it just feels better. So let's start by doing that as well. Okay, so the next thing on our list here is setting up the flying platforms, because at the moment they look a tiny bit boring. So again, I want to create these huge flames from underneath. And we will of course defy physics on this one, but I think it's okay because we do have fighting robots in what looks to be a clash between a sci-fi and a Roman stadium. So it's not really realism we're going for anyways. So let's go in here and let's find a cool particle effect to work off of. And it just so happens that Unity standard assets include some very cool particle effects, especially almost the flames, that look really nice and that are very easy to edit. So let's just use that as a base for what we're going to be making. But I just noticed that we have a bunch of scripts down here cluttering everything. So I'll just take all of the scripts into the scripts folder and the room list item into the prefabs, just to clean this up a bit, because we do have a lot of stuff in here. And I also have a main level 1 folder. I don't know why it's there, but we should definitely delete it. Okay, so under our standard assets, particle systems, and then prefabs, you should see a fire complex prefab, and that's what I want to use. Again, if you don't have this, simply right click in the project panel, go import package and then particle systems, and you can make sure that it's imported there. But for now we are just going to, not prefabs, be using it here, and let's take it and drag it into the scene. Let's find it here, let's reset that in the inspector, and yeah, so that's cool, and we can delete this script here that is currently missing. We don't need that, and I don't think we need to multiply this. I actually like the default look, so that's fine. And you can go ahead and select the different particle systems to see them playing, or we could just go ahead and hit the play button kind of to see what this file looks like. And you can see it has this really nice realistic look where the light is animated in such a way, it's actually done using a script, that it both varies in intensity and moves around to give a very cool looking lively fire effect. So what we are going to do here is, first off, we are going to boost the range of this light to something like 10. And I don't think we need to edit the color or the intensity. So we'll just leave those as is. And then we can, what we basically want to do is we want to flip this effect on its head, because we want it to appear that the fire is coming from beneath these obstacles. So let's go ahead and bring this over to one of the obstacles, and we can do that by dragging it under one of the flying platforms and then resetting the transform once again. So you can see now it's centered on there, and we can maybe move this down a bit, and we'll just drag it. Actually, let's just have it be part of the platform for now. That's fine. So we'll bring it to the very bottom of the platform, and then we'll go and look at the different effects. So when it comes to the light, actually let's move the whole thing down so that we are sure that when the light moves it doesn't go up into the actual platform, and then we can move all of the other effects up as we want to. So this actual fire effect almost looks perfect just as is. I really like the glowing effect here, and it's fine that it rises. We can go ahead and just flip the direction on this. Actually, I really like that. So let's just have that be flipped. That's fine. And then we can find our flames, and these are the ones that we definitely need to edit. So let's flip the direction on the 90 degrees there. However, you can see it still goes upwards, and that's because we need to flip it in here as well. So the start rotation here, let's make that a constant at 180 degrees. So you can see that flipped it on its head, and now we just need to move it down. And also we need to remove the gravity modifier so that it stays in place. And now we can move it up so that it fits. Something like that looks pretty nice. I don't want any clipping to occur, so just move it below so it doesn't clip into the platform. And I think this looks really great. As always, spend more time on this than I do, please, to make it look just right, but I don't have infinite time when it comes to modifying this stuff. We do need to get on with the tutorial. So let's select the dark smoke here, and that's kind of a crazy effect we have going on here, and I actually really like it as is, but I think we should maybe move it down a bit, just a tad, and we'll maybe see the rotation is actually kind of nice. If we flip that 90 degrees, I'll go crazy, but I actually like that. I think it's pretty good. What we can also do is go under the force over lifetime and make it not rise up as quickly. So bump the Y value down. Nope, I want that to stay, but we can maybe do a -1 here. I don't want it to just go right through our surface. Okay, I think we'll keep the original value then. It's probably better. And then we can take the C value here, the Z value, and bump it down to 0.5. So it doesn't look as crazy. I actually kind of like that. And we can take the emission and bump that down as well so it isn't as crazy. Something like that looks really nice. And we do need to do the same thing with the lit smoke. That's this one. We can pretty much do that by, I think we might be able to just rotate it. So now it just goes straight up, and then we want to rotate it on the whatever here. So let's just rotate it manually so it follows the other smoke here. I think that looks pretty great actually. And we can add okay, we'll just use the force over lifetime, and I'll just remove the C value, see what that does. I actually really like that. So there is some wind to it. I think that looks kind of cool. We'll just keep that in there. We can maybe move it over a bit. There. Okay, so again, spend more time, but for now, we'll be happy with this. Maybe move it down a bit as well. Actually, it's more the dark smoke that we need to move down. Something like that. Okay, cool. So we're happy with that. And then we'll find the sparks falling here. And we want to rotate those as well to just point straight down. So I'll just do 0 on the x-axis there. And I really like the feel of these. However, I want them to go slower. So let's do something like 0.2 on the gravity modifier. I think that looks really, really cool. And the sparks rising, we don't want them to go straight through, but I definitely want to have some sparks rising. So what we'll do is we'll add some kind of, maybe we'll just flip those somehow, change the start speed here to be a constant. And we can add some speed to those, something like that. And we can do -90 to make them follow our smoke. And so it will really appear that the wind is blowing here. So I actually really like that. However, I think it's too much when it comes to the emission. So you can go in here and change the curve, or we could just change, let's see here, let's actually go in here and find the curve of this. Come on. Time. For some reason, it doesn't want to open up my curve editor here. That's kind of annoying. But that's okay. What we can do instead is we can simply bump down the color here, so we can lessen the alpha a little bit. And I think this will give kind of the effect that we are going for. Something like that, just to not make it as apparent. Okay, I really like that. I think that works just fine. And again, play more around with it. Now we can take this fire complex and we can duplicate it a bunch of times and move it over to the other platforms as well. I'm just going to snap to the top view here, shift to orthographic, and move that over there. I believe that's flying platform 2. No, that's actually that one over there. So we'll move that over there. Duplicate it to flying platform 3. That's that one. So let's move it over there as well. I'm doing it this way so that we can preserve the Y positioning, and that over to platform 4, which is hopefully that one over there. That's perfect. Cool. And the naming here pretty much doesn't matter. So we'll have all of those in there. And now when we switch back into our perspective mode and hit play, this looks super cool. So I really like the effect that we have going here. I really like how it's very clear with the wind and all of that. Good. So we can save that. And the next thing on our list is dust particles. Oh, actually, I wanted to create a hover animation. I think you should go ahead and do this yourself because we will run out of time if I need to go in and do this. But it is as basic as finding our animation window right here, and then adding a new animation clip and simply animating these platforms on the Y. It's not too difficult. It should definitely be doable. And what I'll also do is I'll shift these a bit in height. I think that will look cool if we just have them be random heights here. So something like that, that looks better. Okay, and then have them hover up and down. That would be super awesome. And you're of course definitely free to add obstacles in here. I've purposefully made this a very open arena with not a lot of stuff in it, so you can go crazy with designing the gameplay on your own. Yeah, so some dust particles, and these are very easy to add as well. Let's find the dust storm prefab again under the standard asset particle systems. Simply drag that in here. And I think this is a prefab that looks very cool just right off the bat. We'll just change a few settings so it isn't as large. So we'll find the shape here and make that something like 40 by 40 or 40 by maybe 5 by 40. That's 50, 40. And let's see just in which direction we made our flames blow in the air here. So let's see, where was it there? So let's find our smoke and our sparks there. Okay, so it went in this direction here. So I definitely want our particles to go in the same direction. And right now I believe, yeah, they're going in the pretty much opposite direction. So let's do a, not on the X, let's do this on the Y, a 180 on that, and maybe just correct it a tiny bit. Something like that looks a lot better. And we can also move it over, and let's bump down the emission on this to something like 40 maybe. Let's go back into the arena, see what it looks like in here. I think it gives a really nice feel. However, I don't want this to affect the gameplay, so we'll just drag it up over the actual gameplay area, or over above the ground at least, so that down here you won't be affected by the dust. And then if you look up, it becomes very clear that that is definitely a thing. So I think that looks pretty cool. And I just want to change the color of this to tint it a tiny bit orange there and in here. There we go. I think that looks really, really awesome. So we'll just keep that in there and have that playing all the time. And we also want to check pre-warm on that so that it is going just when we play the game. And the next thing on our list, and this is a crazy list, I'm just going to have a sip of water, are image effects. And you can pretty much go completely crazy with image effects. You can add color correction, you can add a vignette, you can add chromatic aberration, all kinds of stuff. But I'm just going to add what I think are the two most essential image effects for making your game look a lot cooler without the user thinking, wow, this is edited. This almost looks like he went into Photoshop and played around with all the colors without it being too distracting. And Unity, of course, again has some nice standard assets when it comes to this. Let's import them by going by right-clicking, import package, and then going effects. And it's going to process all of them here. Let's hit import, and there are a bunch of different effects in here. You can pretty much add effects all you want. It has a really nice vignette and chromatic aberration if that's the effect that you're going for. And I'm just going to find my scene camera here and edit this. And let's bring up the game view so we can see this applied. And the first thing that I want to add is screen space ambient occlusion, and also called SSAO. And this is just a very nice image effect that fakes ambient occlusion by looking pretty much at what the screen is seeing. So it's adding this into the render pipeline instead of rendering it into a light map or baking it into a light map beforehand. So it's adding it real time. So therefore it is a bit of an expensive effect, but I think it's so worth it when you see it. So I'm just going to search for screen space, ambient, and you want occlusion, not obscurance. So occlusion here, and you can see the nice shadows that this adds. It adds shadows wherever two objects or surfaces meet. And we definitely want to edit this a bit. We are going to bump down the radius to something a lot smaller here. Something like, I don't know, there looks pretty good. The occlusion intensity I think is fine. It is a pretty high intensity, but that's all right. So let's just have it be something like that. Looks pretty nice. And you can of course see it in the scene view. So let's just copy this component and add it to our player camera as well. So paste the component as new there. And on the player we'll also add a motion blur, and we want that the one called camera motion blur. And I really like the default settings on this one. So when we hit play now and jump in here with our character, and I think this is the first time we're moving around, you can see that we have these cool shadows, and we have the nice effects. I actually think the dust storm is just a bit too much, and everything else looks really nice, and you can see that we can hit everything. We can fly past this grid, and we are able to fly on top of obstacles. So let's just try that real quick, and you can see there that I was able to fly on top of it, even though I kind of failed at it. So you can see that we can stand on top of this, and everything looks cool. So I'm actually really happy with that, so we'll keep that. I will just go in here and bump the emission on the dust storm down to something like 30, and maybe bring the color down just a bit on the alpha here. You can do that, something like that. I think that's better. We can also take it, find it in our scene here, find a dust storm, and maybe move it up even a bit more here, just so it's an effect to see when we look up. And that's perfect. And let's go back here. And the last thing that we want to do is just set a couple of spawn points inside of our arena that makes sense. So let's find our first spawn point here. That's currently right here, and I actually think that that's a fine place for us to spawn. But I just want to, let's see, center it on the X there, and everything else looks fine. The second spawn point is over here. That's fine as well. Whoops. That is centered on the X, and we can just move it over here. Cool. And I just want to create a couple more. I want to create spawn point 3 here. Let's actually move this on top of one of the platforms. So let's center this on the platform there. That looks good. Let's move it over, drag it on top. There we go. I think that looks really nice. And the fourth one here, we'll just position at another part of the map, just to make it, or to confuse the players so they aren't able to just camp one spawn point. That would be annoying, especially when the map is this small. And what you want to do is, of course, add some obstacles in here to duck behind, and maybe have some of the spawn points be behind those obstacles, so so that the players aren't shot immediately after they spawn. But I think that will be just fine. And I believe that the way that we have it set up here is that it will automatically include those two that we just added. So that was the entire list. I hope you were able to follow me in all of this stuff. I really think the final arena here looks super cool, and you should definitely play around with it. It's, again, completely free for you to use. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much to Sameen Ibne for creating this arena. It's an amazing job. If you want to order other models, he does do client work. He is not expensive, and he is very kind. So I definitely recommend him. He's my go-to modeler. And without further ado, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much to all of the awesome Patreon supporters who donated in July, and a special thanks to Vixian, Fimazone, Andrew K, and Lux Game TV. These videos wouldn't be possible without you.